Hi, this is Nahi Kazaza, and welcome to Your Container, which is the first class in our Aspire time management series. So, why do we talk about containers along with time management? The reason I do this is because people tend to have a lot of balls in the air, and sometimes they have so many balls in the air that they can't see them all. And I thought I'd give you a visual of this with this guy who is literally being assaulted by all the balls that he has in the air. The problem is when you have too many balls in the air, you end up losing track of them, and then you have that anxiety that comes from not knowing when a ball is going to drop because it might drop behind you when you're not looking at it. What a container does is gives you a place to put all the balls so you will no longer be surprised. And that is critically important because it takes a huge part of the stress that happens with having all those balls in the air and eliminates it. It doesn't eliminate all the stress, but it gets you started. And that's why a container is such an important place to start. Well, it doesn't make all the balls go away, but what it does do is it gives you a sense of clarity. You still have a lot to do, but what you eliminate by choosing a container is the panic that comes from not really knowing everything that you have to do, which then causes you to make unrealistic promises about what you can get done because you don't remember in that moment all the other things that you've promised that you'll get done. So when you have a container, it's literally a place where everything you have to do goes. And it gives you the peace of mind that if you ever need to think about, well, what do I have to do? You look in your container and at least you'll see everything that you have to do. That way, there won't be any surprises. And you eliminate the stress of, I don't know when the next shoe is going to drop. I don't know what's going to be thrown at me today. And you can make some realistic decisions about what you can get done in the time that you have. And you can also manage expectations because inevitably, when you start this, you're going to realize that there are some things that you've promised to do that you're not going to be able to get done. So now you have to be able to make some decisions, which might involve talking to some people about the fact that you have a delay, but that in itself gives you more control. Having the right container is really, really important because if you have the wrong container, you won't use it. When you choose a container, you have to think about what will I use consistently? Because you have to be able to trust it. You have to know that everything you have to do is actually in the container because most people that I work with who want a time management system or want to work on developing a new time management system, it's not that they haven't used time management systems in the past. Typically, they actually have a to-do list or maybe file folders that they have different projects in. But the problem is that they don't trust that everything they have to do is in that place because they may not use it consistently. So not only do you have to trust it, but it has to be with you always because it has to be easy for you to add things to as you go. And if you realize that you want to do something, or if you're in a conversation and you promise to do something and your container's not there, you might write it down on a piece of paper or you might try to hold it in your head, but you won't put it in your container. So you have to have a container that's going to be with you and a container that's really easy to add to. And it can't take you any time at all. So I know a lot of people that will use these big complex spreadsheets, but because it requires them opening Excel and getting into their spreadsheet and picking a category, they can't do that quickly while they may be in the middle of a conversation. So then they think, well, I'll add it to my spreadsheet later, and then they don't ever have time to add it to their spreadsheet. The other thing is it can't take any time at all for you to check your container. So if you are trying to think about, well, what is it that I have to do? It has to be something that's right there with you. So it has to be really easy to look things up. So these are sort of the parameters of what the ideal container can be. And for each person, the container is going to be something different. So for some people, it'll be the phone, an app on the phone. But it may or may not be that way for everyone. I mean, some people really don't like typing things in on their phone. And some people have a hard time with apps that are just too complicated and have you have different pages or different menus you have to go in to put in different categories. And if it requires you to sit down and focus on entering something for more than, 15 seconds, you're probably not going to do it because it's going to distract you from listening in your meeting, or maybe you're not in a meeting, but whatever situation you're in where you're thinking, oh, I need to do that, anything that's going to distract you for 15 seconds is not a container that's easy for you to add new to-dos to. A lot of people will just use a notebook, and that works great if you keep that notebook with you all the time. And for a lot of people, they like to have things in different categories. A notebook's a little bit more manual. It's a little bit harder to categorize things. Some people will use a spreadsheet. Some people will use their calendar. So choosing a container is actually worth taking some time and putting some energy into to make sure that you choose one that really works well for you. In order to do that, I have an exercise for you. And this is an exercise called evaluating your prior time management systems. I don't know anybody that hasn't attempted to use various time management systems. And if they want a new one, it's usually because one of their old ones isn't working very well for them. So here is a 4-column table. You can stop the video right now and do it right now. That's probably the best way to do it. And write your 4 columns and think about the different systems that you used. For each system, write what worked best and what didn't work. And if knowing what worked best and what didn't work about that system helps you, what is it that you want to carry forward? So I did this for me for all the prior time management systems that I've used. So I was a big Franklin time management system user for about 5 years, and I loved it because it was a great container. But what didn't work for me is rewriting lists of to-dos, and I never really got the app once they went electronic. So I know that I don't want to have to ever rewrite anything. That's my lesson that I'm going to carry forward. Often I have used labeled files or notebooks or expanding files, or I've known other people to use them. And that nicely can separate your tasks into different categories. But the problem is that often you might not have the right file with you when you have something that comes up that you need to put into it. And I have coached people who have had many files for many different projects or many different categories of things or different notebooks for different parts of their lives. And then inevitably they run into a situation where they don't have the notebook they need. So that's why I like to say one container. I, for many years, went around with just one notebook for everything, and I still kind of do. I have one spiral notebook that I use for all my notes, no matter whether they're personal notes, business notes, or anything like that. The good news about that is that everything's always in the notebook. But the thing that's hard is going back and finding things, because for me, the notebook's just completely chronological and everything's all mixed up in there. So I use a little bit more than just a notebook now, but a spiral notebook by itself with maybe some little colored tabs could be a great time management system for somebody. A calendar is what I work on now because I have a lot of appointments, so I always look at my calendar for what I need to do. And I have a couple things that I've developed to complement the calendar, like my notebook. But for some people, a calendar doesn't work because they're not always looking at the calendar or because they have different calendars. And my calendaring system fell apart when my desktop calendar stopped syncing with my iPhone calendar. So they used to sync up really nicely. I'd put something in on my desktop, it would show up on my iPhone and vice versa, but then I ended up having technical problems and that completely ruined my calendaring system. So this exercise is for you to use to evaluate your prior systems and help you get real clarity on what works for you. So the process of choosing your container is really important, and it's worth taking some time to do. For most people, the reason they have had time management systems that have failed in the past is really because they've had the wrong container. If they've had the right container, then usually they've stuck with the time management system. But if they haven't stuck with the time management system, it's because they've had the wrong container. Some of the common mistakes are that they've had a container that's too complicated. I know a lot of people that have a system of file folders or a very large Excel spreadsheet. And because it takes time to think of the category and put something in it, they just don't open it all the time and add new things. And so then they don't stick to it, and not everything they have to do is contained in the spreadsheet or in their series of file folders. Some people get really excited and they say, oh, let me go get a new app or a great new time management system. Let me invest some money into something that's really good. Well, that may be a good idea on the surface, but think about this. If you have a new app, you have to learn it. And if you have a time management system problem, you probably don't have time to learn something new right now. Your most important objective is to get things under control. I would rather have you get a draft container that you think you might use now and start getting things under control. And then if you want to get a new app, go ahead and research apps and get one a little bit later. It'll be easy once you have everything organized to transfer to a newer or more complicated system. Where I suggest you start is thinking about where you find yourself looking at every day, or what you find yourself looking at several times per day. So, for most of you, you're going to be looking at your phone every day, or maybe you're looking at a computer every day, or maybe you're in the kitchen every day and you're looking at a big wall calendar, or in your bedroom, maybe you have something on your wall hanging that you might look at every single day. So think about, what do I look at every single day, and what do I look at several times per day? So if I'm only looking at something once in the morning in my bedroom and then I'm leaving, that might not be the best container, because something might happen at 4 o'clock and I'm nowhere near my bedroom. So, which brings us to our second point. What do you carry with you wherever you go? Most of us carry our phones with us, but we might also carry a purse or a bag. So we could put notebooks in those containers, or if you have your time management system on your desktop and it's synced up with your phone, or you have a little supplement on your phone, that might work for you too. So just some things to think about. When you think of something we want to remember, where's the easiest and quickest place for you to jot it down? One surprising thing for me is that I started using the Reminders app on my iPhone. It's just a little app. You can write a to-do, and then you can have it go off and remind you to do that thing at a certain time. And I found it to be tremendously helpful. It's not the only part of my time management system, but now it is part of my container. So I know that if something's not on my calendar, my reminder will buzz off and remind me to do something. And now I don't have to put all my tasks on my calendar. And since I always have my phone with me and the reminder app will automatically send me a notification, I don't have to remember to go into my reminders list. So you'll find things that work really well for you, and it might not be one container. It might be one thing with a couple of periphery items that circle around it. Like for me, I have my calendar as my main thing, but I also have a spiral notebook and I use my reminders. But that works for me. The idea is I have those things with me every day. So those are some places to start. Really, really take your time thinking about this. So taking some time thinking about and looking for the perfect time management container for you, I think is totally worth it. Even if you try something and it doesn't work, and then you have to try something else, even spending a few weeks or a month getting this figured out, I think it's worth the time, because when you have the perfect time management container, you'll be able to focus on your work knowing that you're going to have fewer surprises of things that you suddenly remember that you have to do. And when you think about, what do I have to do next, or you start feeling guilty working on something because you're worried that you might have to work on something else, it'll just take you a couple minutes to take a glance at your container and get yourself regrounded in knowing what the most important things are that you need to be focusing on. When you have a container, you'll no longer have to worry about suddenly remember something or having those surprises. And that in itself can be a huge stressor that you can eliminate from your life. It will be easier for you to make decisions about what to focus on, and you'll be more at peace with your decisions. So have fun with this process. Enjoy it. Once you get a container chosen and you practice with it a little while, you will find that it makes a huge difference in your ability to stay on top of everything you have to do.